Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining another LeadSquared Roundtable. This one is for folks in the lending sector, but as always, anyone else who wishes to join in is most welcome. We are decoding digital lending for 2022, and I have a fabulous panel here, as you can see. So let me just go over our panelists before I talk about the agenda. So we have Ms. Shalu Kaushik, who is the EVP and Digital Head at Tata Capital. We have Mr. Amol Chaudhary, who is the Director Financial Services at KPMG. We have Mr. Kandhar Kant, who is the Chief Technology Officer at Poonawalla FinCorp. And our host for the day is Mr. Sudipta Mukherjee, who is the
Thank
Vice
you.
President Sales at LeadSquared. So some of the things that we will cover, and you would have probably seen in your email, in the emails we've sent you, are changes in the lending ecosystem, the trends we are seeing, and adoption of digital services. We'll also talk about the tips for penetrating new segments, accelerating the loan book growth, leveraging big data, the importance of client lifecycle management, and of course, the impact of current regulatory guidelines. So with that, I will hand it over to you, Sudipta, to take it over and start the session.
Sure. Thank you very much, Shivani. Thank you everyone for joining, participants. Thank you, Kandar, Shalu, and Amol again. Welcome once again. Good evening to everyone. So with that, we start our digital. Obviously, I mean, just to give you a quick a start note, digital transformation has been the in thing right from I think in the financial sector post financial crisis. Then in India, demonetization. Thanks to COVID, I think some of the quotes that we all read, the COVID has enhanced the digital transformation budgets and goals. It was not a CIO or a CTO, but COVID. But great. I mean, thank you everyone for joining. And for the first topic that we are taking here is the evolution of digital lending and phases, new trends emerging. Why don't we start with Kandar? You obviously leading the technology, being the CTO at Poonawalla FinCorp. If you can just help us start a note with, as you see the evolution and the new trends, the new technology adoptions, and how are you shaping your business? Anything for all of us to learn with?
Sure. Thanks, Sudipto. So I think there was even before COVID hit, and COVID perhaps is a huge milestone in everybody's life, not only from digital perspective, but individual lives as well. But it is really a sea change in the way things have happened. But even before COVID was happening, there was a quiet revolution which was already unfolding in India.
Right.
And that was perhaps the implementation of Aadhaar, because in even I would say countries like Bangladesh or Pakistan, there was a national ID much before India got into that concept of having a unified national uniform national ID. But Aadhaar implementation was one of the basic things, I think, where every lender was at least not struggling to establish the identity of a person, right? And somewhere down the line we lost a little bit of time in terms of eKYC not being provided to the NBFC lenders, but now I think post COVID things are changing, and RBI has recently opened up the eKYC licenses for NBFCs as well. And somewhere down the line when COVID hit, of course the transformation really entered into a hyper I would say zone. And what really transpired during that was not only a change in the lender's mindset, but also in the user's behavior. The people who are interacting, who were more used to going to a branch and then submitting their documents over the counter or talking to a DSA, that
Absolutely.
touchy-feely kind of interaction, which people were very comfortable with, that went away, and the mindset completely changed. Sort of an overnight change, I would say.
Right.
And secondly, from our perspective in the lending business itself, the comfort that was there, knowing your customer sitting across the table, having a face-to-face, sip of tea, and and then understanding what their lives are all about, and then taking an underwriting call. Moving away from that mindset for our underwriters and our risk modelers was also a huge sea change.
Right.
But then all of this was fast tracked, really fast tracked by I would say the COVID intervention. And the other revolution, I would say, which was again unfolded and which really also kind of really took a hyper growth, was the revolution in the API interactivity, and the integrations, right?
Yeah.
So what API proliferation did perhaps was that it democratized, uh, the application business. So even small players were able to interact with each other, quickly develop, maybe 2 months, 3 months was the dev time, and a huge revolution was undertaking. That's why you see, so many fintechs, doing so well,
Right.
and they being smaller organizations, they were more nimble, and
Absolutely.
they really took, a lot of lead in, doing these API kind of integrations. So I think that's where we are right now.
Very nice. Thank you very much, Kandarp. Shalu, coming to you in terms of customer mindset. I mean, you do a lot of work on the digital side. You had digital initiatives at Tata Capital. Anything that you see that you would like to share today evening. Especially focusing on the customer mindset that Kandarp spoke about.
Sure. Thanks. So let me just take a step back and just like to talk about how lending business
Okay.
is changing
Sure.
in recent years.
Yes. Yes.
Obviously, as we all know, lending business in recent years has been getting disrupted by the digital transformation, which is driving the whole ecosystem. And it is getting disrupted because of the need for superior customer experience, emerging business models, faster turnaround time, adoption of the contemporary technology like Kandar mentioned about APIs, cloud-based infrastructure, AI or artificial intelligence, as we all know,
Right.
and machine learning models. Now, answering to your point, what do we think customers are looking at now? If I have to talk about how this is catching momentum, first and foremost, I feel it's the changing consumer behavior.
Right.
Driving adoption of digital lending products is now today the customer also wants these kind of products. I'll talk about some statistics. Customers are adopting digital avenues as a result because of the rise in smartphone usage, internet penetration, as we all are seeing. If we have to go by some numbers, a recent study mentions that digital channels are influencing over 40 to 60% of the loan purchase transaction happening across loan types. So remember, I'm talking about across loan types. Obviously, digital enabled products are higher. Certain products are higher in category, and obviously certain will be a little lower. But on an average basis, 40 to 60% of the loan purchases are happening, or at least the exploration is happening on the digital channel.
Right.
Now, the next part which I face is that moreover, the customers, the kind of face of the customers, which is getting now diversified towards the new to credit customers. So nearly 49% of the consumers today, as we see in some of the data, is under 30 years of age. So that also talks about the kind of population which is looking for the lending option digitally.
Right. Right. Right.
Then the key next point is COVID has, or the pandemic has further accelerated the shift to digital. Then COVID-19 has in a way acted as a catalyst in many ways for the lending business, and it has accelerated the transition to the above ways. It has also, I feel, has forced financial institutions to rewrite their physical and digital strategy. Kandar talked about the earlier way people used to like to walk into the branch and have a look and
Right.
feel of the paper and all.
Right.
Now I think those things are changing.
Yes.
One important thing which has brought a paradigm shift here, I feel, is that the new normal, it is no more or factor. It is an and factor. Let me explain it little more. What I mean to say, earlier only organizations wanted the digital adoption to happen. But
Right.
now we are seeing both, even the customers are looking for that kind of adoption to be taken up.
Absolutely.
That's what I feel.
Right. Thank you very much, Shalu. Amol, you come from a consulting background. Your experience into consulting. Now, for you, whether it's fintech, banking, or non-banking. I mean, from where you're looking at, if you can share your thoughts around transformation and lending, and from your perspective, as I said, irrespective of whether it is banking or non-banking, your thoughts on this.
So, thanks, Sudipta. So, just picking up from where Shalu and Kandar left. So there is absolutely no doubt. What happened due to the pandemic. There were some people who were, taking a little bit time to decide whether to embark on this digital transformation journey. There were some people who were kind of early visionaries who had already embarked upon it, and there were few people who are in a little bit of doubt. But pandemic kind of forced them. It was a question of survival,
Right.
So they had no choice.
Right.
So everybody eventually landed into that situation. Now, not repeating everything, coming
Right.
back to the point, what it did is it changed the expectations of the customer. Now your client and customer is not comparing you with another lending or NBFC or a bank. They are comparing you with a Zomato. They are comparing you with
Yeah.
with an Uber.
Right.
They are comparing you with a Myntra and Amazon, right? So it's not because this pandemic, even before these digital native or the people who are savvy for those technologies, pandemic even forced everybody, even young kids, right, to live their life, survive in the digital way. So this, in a way, changed the expectation. It created a new segment. It completely transformed the persona of the segment,
Right.
that the lenders were serving. So that is a big change that happened, and now they have gotten used to it. So digital transformation journey is not going to stop. The companies, the lenders, the banks have to continuously keep evolving themselves, doing
Right.
better and better. So
Right.
it's going to be a infinite project in progress.
Right.
Second thing, what it did, one interesting thing it did, it brought focus to the architecture. So it's a very technical point, but if you see, you go in any organization, you will talk about applications, you will talk about customer experience and a lot of things. Architecture was a part which was least discussed.
Absolutely.
But now you are in a situation that if you have to survive, grow, thrive, you have to operate in a land ecosystem. You can only work in an ecosystem. You can be scalable in an ecosystem only if your architecture is allowing you to do that. So everything you do, you have to keep an eye on the architecture, which is your business architecture, your tech architecture. Eventually, that is going to help you build offering and solutions
Right.
which were kind of unimaginable.
Right.
If you were
Right.
if you look at these flavors of buy now, pay later,
Yes.
eat now, pay later, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
if you are not able to hook on to those fintech providers or ecosystem providers, and you are
Right.
not able to build an offer or an offering or a product in real time,
Right.
people are not going to remember you. So I
Right.
think this is a major shift that has happened in mindset, and I think it's going to continue and get only better.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you very much, Amul. That brings me to another thought. The same subject is, while people are using mobile phone apps, digital banks, using internet even more, security is the number one there. We all read about frauds. We all read about various data coming out from there. Who else other than Kandar? Let's start again with you. In terms of security, how do you any thoughts on how do you ensure that these platforms are secured, or you're enabling your customers, or when if I start my own fintech, what are the things that I should take care of that so that my app or my environment that I bring into the customers are really secured?
Yeah, so Sudip, I think there are two ways where, or rather two fronts in which you have to fight this battle of security. So one is, of course, the perimeter security where, you can build firewalls, you can deploy all sorts of tools, which can identify, malicious attempts to
Right,
access your systems and
right,
networks.
right,
That has been, I think, working, and that these have been deployed for ages now,
right,
and they've been doing their bit in ensuring that the people I mean, inside your perimeter are safe and sound.
Absolutely.
But I think the recent development perhaps is now that the ingenuity of these hackers is in getting through the perimeters, through authorized gates, and the gaps that you create for the usual traffic in terms of emails and phishing scams and then ransomware
Right. Right.
unloading into your system.
Right.
And the only way perhaps that, of course, there are enough and more systems to identify these kind of attempts as well. But the biggest perhaps contributor in ensuring your defenses are great is your user behavior, your user awareness,
Right.
right? So, and thankfully, again, much more credit to again this digital revolution. People themselves now realize, having used phones and then gotten hacked. Also, some people might have got hacked as well.
Right.
And there are enough and more stories of even large companies and corporates got hacked
Right.
with
Right.
these ransomwares.
Right.
So the users themselves are very much aware, and then on our part, being responsible for security, we take a lot of pains in ensuring that the user awareness is great.
Right.
We keep on repeating these messages more and more, and the emailers and trainings are continuing. So for fintechs, I think again, these kind of tools obviously help, but it's more a heightened sense of security and your own responsibility, which is perhaps delivering the results till now.
Right.
And that is going to continue. I think the hackers are again going to find more and more ingenious ways of getting their job done. So
Right.
we have to be very, very aware and cautious about that.
Right. So as a lender or as a platform provider, if I'm looking at from that perspective, you spoke about customer behavior. Now
Yeah.
I'll cite my personal experience. Recently, I had to do 5 transactions in a day, and on the 5th transaction, my credit card just got locked, and I got a call from the company saying that is this you who were doing it, right? I said, yeah, I had multiple transactions. So actually, I do it over the weekend, but it just happened that it was more than 3 transactions, which
Right.
from their data, it figured out that I have not done more than 3 transactions or 4 transactions in a particular day.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah. So I think one point you mentioned earlier, perhaps, again, this computational, prowess that we have now,
Right.
even for, pulling up, behavior changes out of large data warehouses and large sets of data in a fraction of second, and perhaps, raise an early warning flag. So
Right.
these kind of systems, again, cloud proliferation, and then the compute power which is now unleashed. So these
Right.
things are again contributing. So definitely, has a lot of work has happened there. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you. So with that, we'll move on to our next topic. Thank you, everyone. So we have tips for penetrating new segments. The new segments, we briefly touched upon that thanks to Aadhaar, and then Jandan, the initiative by the government of India. Jandan has over, I think, if my data is right, more than 550 million new bank account that opens up. Aadhaar, of course, the reach of Aadhaar is almost 90% or over 90% of our population. So Amol, I'll start with you first. If you could help us share your thoughts on new segment, like in the digital lending and the tier 1, tier 2 cities. We were chatting the other day. There are lots of opportunities. There are lots of companies offering buy now, pay later, wallets, and all of that. But in the rural areas, tier 3 cities and rural areas, what do you see, and your thoughts on that?
Pretty interesting, question, Sudipto. So the thing is, what has this technology and digital revolution done
Right.
to the general population in India? Even if you go to the remotest area now, most of the time the probability that people have smartphones, they
Right.
are used to at least some of the medium like WhatsApp and that they use to interact. and also they consume a lot of content, right?
Right.
They are on social media sites, they are on YouTube. So there is a segment which was kind of hidden. So you had these two. I'll take two, extreme examples. One is that you have these tier one cities,
Right.
pretty well-defined segment that exists. You have all the possible data that you can get about them, build a persona, design your offers, do underwriting, and uh, underwrite a loan for them. Then there is a segment which was being catered by the microfinance institutes, right?
Yes.
Absolutely the lowest of the pyramid. And there exists and lies a segment between them, which is just above this pyramid. Who doesn't even know that there is something like microfinancing loan exists, because they don't fall in that category. They don't want to explore that option, and they are not at par with the tier one, the topmost segment that you are catering to. So how do you identify or build a persona around that? How do you design and build your offers and product about? So how well you can peel the information, that the data that is available, right? So now it is a paradox, right? You have to make sure that you provide the best possible experience to your customer, also with the minimum data that you ask the customer to share with you.
Right.
You don't want them to keep asking more and more things. So you have to look out for the sources,
Right.
alternative sources of information,
Right.
which could help you provide this information, which will help you identify that segment, build that segments, and design your offerings for that segment. So this is what I think. It's a highly educated segment in rural areas now. They are ambitious, right? And they are looking for the sources of funding. So some of the initiatives like Mudra loan and all those things have spread that awareness, where people have realized that I can take a small amount of money and I can start something of my own. So a lot of these people are pretty enterprising. They don't want to rely on the jobs or working on someone else. They would rather like to buy a couple of cattle and start a dairy business. Right. So that segment exists. The only thing is that how do I prepare ourselves? How do I prepare? How to build a profile of that segment so that I am able to actually provide the reasonable and suitable offerings and product for that segment.
Right.
So. So awareness is not a problem. They are, and reachability is not a problem at all. That segment is lying there, and I think there's a huge potential that lies there with that segment.
Right. Excellent. So, Shalu, on the I know you focus a lot on the metro tier 1 and tier 2 cities there as well, of course, across the spectrum. And there is a related question, Salu, if you are fine, I'll read out from Devi Prasanna Pradhan. So he's asking that now that digital is so evident and lending is becoming so competitive and margins still limited, how important is digital branding? I think I was reading this question and I thought, who better than you can actually speak about this? Digital branding, margins and all, and we can keep. But I think digital branding is something. What are your thoughts on that?
Very valid question, and in today's era, I think digital branding is very, very important, and in fact, it is taking the center stage. When I say center stage, we will see a lot of brand today does the marketing only on digital platforms. So you don't see them on the normal media, which we call it as ATL, where you are seeing on the TV or the hoardings, because that's where the population is, and that's where they want to see you. So being where the customers are, what better place to be than there? So definitely, it's a very important aspect to be considered today.
Right. Absolutely. Okay, we move on. So there is one question from Rahul Maurya. Do you think company like Zest and other BNPL are a threat to a normal customer? I mean, so maybe any one of you who wants to pick that. So for Shalu, you have experience on banking as well as now non-banking. Do you think BNPL type of segment is a threat to a normal customer?
Sure. So I'll take this. So I'll not go with a specific name which is being given, but overall, if I would like to talk about, There are if we are talking about fintech as a company, I don't think so any fintech is a threat at first place.
Right.
Fintech can be viewed as alliances also, because that in today's time is a very, very important thing. They are working in conjunction with the banks or NBFC for working out a strategy which works win-win for both the entities.
Right.
With regard to BNPL product, if we have to talk about, obviously this is an emerging segment. We will have to wait and watch how this particular segment performs, but clearly this particular segment, the way it is being positioned as a product, a bundle product on an e-commerce or a kind of platform, it's actually satisfying the need of the population who are looking for the credit, which is aspirational or experiential kind of customers who want to experience certain kind of convenience or ease.
Right.
So yes, it has to. We have to wait and see how the portfolio performs on an industry level or a particular company level, I would say.
Right. No, absolutely. The aspirational value, I think that aspect is what has actually caught the attention of most, and buying an expensive smartphone, buying expensive electronics, and paying a very small EMI, I think works out really well, and I do see a great opportunity, of course, as we all see. Now, moving on to the next, we spoke about leveraging data. How about data for customer targeting? Amol, your experience now, if I say, you have vast experience not just in India but outside India as well. What are the key learnings and challenges that you see where data is actually empowering customer behavior, customer targeting? So companies are lining up their sales team, marketing approaches, all based on data that we collect. Your thoughts and experience there? So I think Amol dropped some internet issue. Kandar,
I'll take that.
Yeah.
So Sudipta, I think, and Shalu can perhaps add to that.
Yes.
Everybody was quite worried, I think, when we were passing through the COVID phase, that on the other side of COVID, will all your scoring models and the risk modeling that you've done, the scorecards and all, will they still hold?
Right.
Because there was substantial disruption, not only in business but people's lives as well from health issues.
Right.
So this was a huge concern which I think everybody carried, and more so people like Shalu, who had to target the right people.
Yes.
But thankfully, I mean, looking at the resilience that we've seen in the market and on the business side also, and then even now, I think there could be some gray patches around, but then more or less, I think we've seen a pretty good recovery. So the saving grace for us has been, that at least whatever data was available, whatever models were there, they're still holding. The idea that how to exploit this data, and then what you can do with that data, and this is again an evolving story, and then we're now looking at what we used to imagine as micro segmentation and segment of one, which I think now a lot of people are able to crack. Most of the organizations are there, but then the contributing factor is that the customer himself is now omnipresent in terms of the digital footprints. So you can see the same person having interactions in Facebook, on Twitter, and then in your own networks, in the previous purchases, and then banking statements and all that. So you're able to very well sort of triangulate and go to a very niche segment and do a very thin sliced dice, which is really helping people like Shalu target the right people. Maybe Shalu can take it forward from there.
Sure. So I'll just build on to what Kandar said. Let me map the entire customer life cycle of a lending life cycle, if I may call it.
Yes.
Right from onboarding, obviously data is playing a very, very important role, and many players have actually evolved in that, to personalization, giving you pre-approved offer, giving you customized offer. So that's where the first role comes in from a data perspective. Next come the credit underwriting or risk management, which Kandar did touch upon on the scorecard. So building algorithms which are working conducive to the particular entity or the financial institution policy. Building parameters, whether it is holding good or not, that's the next level of algorithms one has to do. Then comes the service aspects of it. Obviously, once the customer is onboarded, your next ambition as a growing company is upsell or cross sell. So can you gauge what the customer wants and maybe give him the next best product? What propensity based product can you give him? What is he looking for? Again, data plays a very important role there. Last in the cycle, I would say, is the collection. And today, data is actually being valued across collection, the complete life cycle of collection also, which we call it as debt recovery as well. You get to know, or you build propensity which customer is likely to default, or if he defaults, when is the right time to collect? Are there better methodologies to collect? So data is playing a very, very important role, undoubtedly, in the entire life cycle of the customer lending.
Right. Well, that's interesting. Thanks, Shalu, for adding up. Maybe I'll digress a little bit, but it is connected. So we all hear about super apps that most of the large companies are actually developing. So, for example, if I take me as a consumer, I might be a consumer of electricity, I might be a consumer of a loan or AMC, and one group or a conglomerate might be offering all the products, right? I mean, right from consumer durable to a financial product to a utility product. So I think from that perspective, Kandar, Shalu, anything that you think companies should do better, or what should be a better strategy around adding more customers in the metro, tier 1, tier 2 city, because the target audience here is mostly in these three segments. And Amol also has joined, if you can also share.
Sorry, Sudipta, I kind of missed the question.
So actually, we were talking about data. Talking about data, how data is actually transforming and making decisions, helping marketeers, digital heads, business heads, technology heads make decisions. And we were talking about behavior of customers, past data, also use data to cross-sell, upsell. And I was just saying, when you dropped, there's a super app concept which is coming in, and large groups are all having super apps where you might be also providing a utility product like a telecom or a power, or you might also be a consumer of a loan or a mutual fund. So your experience, and since you have experience of markets outside India as well, we are talking a lot about India, but your experience that you see in markets abroad, what we can learn from them, and then the challenges that you see which we actually solved.
So I just spend a very, very quick 1 or 2 minutes on the data part. I heard what Shalu was saying about it. Definitely, no doubt, it is going to be the fuel. It is the fuel that's going to drive the business. How well you are able to harness is that's going to differentiate any business. And it's not only related to your customer experience part. Even the topic that Kandar touched upon regarding the cybersecurity, right? So you are running a race. You are competing with people, a group of people. A lot of them are passionately driven. They are just passionate about hacking into your system. They have no other interest. They take it as a personal challenge that I have to break into it, right? So it's like it's like a race. The people who are sitting securing your environment, they are doing it for most of the time for the salary that is being paid to them. Okay. But the thing is, if you use the emerging technology, AI, ML, what we have seen, right? A lot of this code is available online. They pick it up, tweak it a little, and any algorithm can read that 90% similarity is in two different bugs, two different attacks. Ransomware being one of the recent, I think, maximum threats have been through ransomwares. And it's so tricky. It can sit in your database, even if you do all the archive and backup, it can lie there for 6 months and doesn't do anything, and suddenly gets activated after 6 months. Your backup data is also get infected, right? And companies have paid ransom, right? It doesn't come into public domain, but that has been happening.
Right.
So it has pushed the companies towards cyber insurance, to take cyber insurance more seriously. That is something that's gonna going to be a bigger thing. Coming back to the super app, so what I've seen personally, especially in Hong Kong and Chinese market, they have pretty evolved and good super apps. WeChat being one of them, where they are trying to provide everything a consumer needs to conduct their day-to-day activity, whether it is the payment, small financing, shopping, traveling, these what you do every day.
Right.
And I see this trend picking up in India as well. Some big corporates, I think, heavily planning to invest in the super app concept. So definitely, and it depends how mature your entire ecosystem is. That's the
Right.
concept of super app, right?
Right.
Whatever is around you, how well you can integrate with that and build a platform to provide everything to your customer at one place, which is what people prefer. Everybody doesn't want to have multiple apps in their solution. Nobody would want to have an insurance app, but they wouldn't mind having something in a app that they use, a transportation app or a payment app that they are using,
Right.
for
Right.
example. So that's going to be a interesting trend to watch out for. It is I think something that requires heavy investment and some serious work, and that's why I see bigger player in India, I think, picking up on this. Yeah.
Sure, sure. Amol, any experience, if you can share some experience from other markets? We spoke a lot about Indian market, but if one or two instances you can, and your experience, the other markets, developing markets or developed markets, what they are doing better that, we as in India should do better?
So interestingly, India has a pretty evolved
Yes,
financial
yes,
ecosystem, and pretty robust
right,
value chain when it
right,
comes to financial services. We there are If I go to say a market like Hong Kong, China, they are not. It's like easier, less on the security part. You can swipe a card without a pin there, right? So that's
right,
how it is there.
right.
Then you look at some underdevelopment, underdeveloped economies like African region. So they have some places they have, and some companies and banks have not only kind of leapfrog,
Hmm,
they are actually pole vaulted
hmm,
to the digital wave,
hmm,
like from zero
hmm,
to say 70, 80 out
hmm,
of 100. So it is a M-Pesa was a very, very, very old case study when we didn't have digital payment concept. It was already done by Safaricom in Kenya, and you could go to a vegetable vendor on sitting on the road and
right,
pay through using M-Pesa, right? Using feature phone. That's how it was.
right,
So the thing is, the wave of transformation is gonna come from developing, developing and underdeveloped economies.
right,
If you compare your financial value chain with some matured, markets
right,
like in Americas or Europe, you
hmm,
will surprisingly find that we have very, very efficient and scalable systems and processes here.
right,
The turnaround time to underwrite and issue a loan is
right,
much lesser as compared to some of the very big markets and all the topmost players operating there.
right,
So we
right,
have been able to build that, and a lot of credit goes to this. First thing that Kandar mentioned about to Aadhaar, which has
right,
empowered not only the KYC,
right,
right? It gives a digital signature capability to every individual, right?
right,
So you reduce a lot of unnecessary documentation,
right,
which
right.
kind of streamlines your process flow. So I think India is it's pretty, when it comes to financial services, from both the sides, turnaround time as well as the security is pretty robust as compared to any other market in India.
Right, right,
Definitely, there is always a you know
right,
way
right,
forward, right?
right, right. So another, I was reading one report which says that the credit gap in India is over $330 billion dollar, and those who are unbanked, those a huge population which is yet not reached. Obviously, fintechs and digital lending is helping a lot there. Anyone, I mean, this is just an open question. Or a discussion point to any of one of you. Your thoughts around that?
So obviously I'll just
Sure.
answer in
Yes,
my
please.
thought process. So obviously we know we have some established data through help of bureau that how many people are
Right.
having any kind of track records or credit records.
Right.
The fact which I mentioned that close to 49% of the younger population is
Yes.
coming into
Yes.
fold.
Yes.
And there are so many unbanked population, what Amol mentioned in the beginning.
Right.
So definitely what we are talking, what we know, obviously there's a great amount of unstructured data, which is, or kind of, not data, but customers which we would not know are needing this kind of lending, but we are not able to cater to. But yes, the gap is quite huge. We have a long way to go.
Right.
And obviously digital could be one of the way, or technology, if I may say so, could be one of the way to bridge that in its own fashion.
Right.
Like in top cities, it is the digital journeys,
Yes.
bringing customer convenience. Whereas rural market, it could be a BC model or a
Right.
Aadhaar-based withdrawal model, reaching out to villages, or MFI kind of business. So there's a large opportunity which lies for this sector clearly. And currently, it is more focused on certain amount of products. Like digital today is more focused on, as I said, more amenable products like a personal loan or small loans kind of thing. But next kind of things which we are seeing today, thanks to the technology and digital, is like BNPL, buy now pay later product, or
Right.
loans to SME or MSME, what we call, is an emerging trend which we are seeing, because a lot of work is happening around that.
Right.
And also ecosystem is supporting a lot of these things, like
Yes.
account aggregator coming into
Yes.
play,
Yes.
which will make life easy for many of us, including obviously customer and all of us
Absolutely.
from an industry perspective.
Yes.
So there are a lot of steps which is coming, like Aadhaar based e-sign, which has already come in.
Right.
KYC digital stack, which has been provided, like offline KYC, e-KYC, video KYC. So there are multiple modes today which are available.
Right.
So these are working towards making this better, and not only from a sourcing perspective, obviously from a collection perspective or a portfolio management perspective also, we are seeing these things are working. Aadhaar based payments, which anyway few banks were doing earlier, but obviously we will see more happening on that front. So
Right.
I feel there's a large gap to be plugged in.
Sure. Sure. Yeah, Amol. Yes. Yes.
One point I want to see, there is in India, there is a large population that is dependent or employed by our agriculture sector.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Even though you cannot find their records in a credit bureau, but they are banked. They have bank accounts because a lot of their produce payment directly comes into the bank. Now the thing is, there is this traditional wisdom, or kind of a psychological barrier, that instead of going to a bank for a personal loan, they will rather take a credit card, Kisan credit card loan.
Right.
All of them have that.
Right.
They will take whether it is a small amount to pay a school fee or college fee for their kids, or for a marriage or something. They rather prefer to go and take that agriculture loan because it is kind of a pre-approved loan for them based on the profile of that customer. So that segment is there, that ambitious segment, and they need money. The thing is, they have this psychological barrier that if I go and take a loan, personal loan, that's going to cost me more. It is going to be a more, bigger hassle to me. It is better because they are well kind of ingrained in that ecosystem. The people who are interacting there, they go to that bank regularly. That's how they operate. And it is easier. The bank branch manager knows how much is the credit limit on the credit card for this person.
Yes.
Okay. And also, some of them, they have this thing in mind that it might get waived off at a point of time. That is also a point worth considering.
Sure. Absolutely. So we spoke about ecosystem and ecosystem that the regulator or the government of India providing. I want to come really down on the tech ecosystem, and obviously tech ecosystem, Kandar on the stage. So Kandar, if you can, for all of us here who are actually participants who are looking at starting up a fintech or an NBFC of their own, what should be, without naming any tools or provider, but what should be really the core tech ecosystem that one should focus, because technology is going to be is the base and going to be for everything. So your thoughts on the tech ecosystem there?
Yeah, so Deepa, I think it's fairly simple now, and a lot of people, even very smaller sized startups have already cracked, this issue.
Right.
But if you look at, and I'll take you perhaps from the larger ones, then down to the smaller ones, maybe.
Yes.
And so I'll address your question perhaps with a little background.
Sure.
And so that the idea is that the larger organizations or institutions like large banks, be it private sector or public sector, they're heavily laden with kind of older technology, perhaps with resident data centers, physicalized everything,
Right.
and then they started slowly moving towards cloud, and then they're now still testing out how things pan out there.
Right.
And so they were not as nimble as perhaps maybe the NBFCs, which took up the technology changes much faster than relative to banks, right?
Yes.
And even in the NBFCs, some of them are so large that changing systems overnight or introducing new applications or
Right.
process steps
Right.
again was a challenge, and they could not really compete. Wherein the gap was filled again by these much more nimbler, smarter and smaller fintechs, right?
Right.
So that's where so perhaps the changes in technology and how quickly you can adopt it is what is driving the value chain, right?
Absolutely.
So Shalu mentioned that the sourcing is in now partnership with these fintechs, right? So the NBFCs are increasingly more dependent on these fintechs for their sourcing, leveraging their partnerships. And of course, NBFCs have already been recognized as, I'd hate to use the word, but shadow banks, right?
Right.
Who are now much more in front of the banks, right? Now coming to the ecosystem where these smaller fintechs are, so everybody's experimenting, and if you go to a small fintech which was maybe fintech which was small earlier, perhaps
Right.
people who were experimenting with your PAN verification kind of services, GSTR, ITR kind of services, they've suddenly seen an explosion of the demand in the market, because everybody wanted to latch on to their services and use those services. And the ecosystem which is now involved is that you start small, maybe on the sourcing side. So your digital footprint, your ability to attract and hook on to a new customer onto your website gets honed and then much more refined. So you're sourcing very well, much better than maybe an NBFC. And then once you have the customer in your pocket, then you start experimenting, maybe try to cross sell, upsell.
Right.
So your CRM kind of solutions also, and
Right.
most of them are experimenting with their own in-house developed codes.
Right.
And that of course is again much fueled by the DevOps kind of revolution, where you can quickly off the shelf get compute and set up quick continuous integration and development kind of environments. So that value chain is now very well in place, and even the smaller guys with these experiences are experimenting very well, and then coming out with a lot of success stories.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So earlier, where application development used to be, large projects, people have experimented with Scrum kind of sprints, where quickly smaller, micro releases are done, and every second day, third day, maybe or once a week, you are bringing in newer and newer features. So that nimbleness is what is really, building that ecosystem.
Right.
So and from a technical perspective, now things are agnostic because it's all API driven. So it doesn't matter your counterpart is on a Java based technology or a .NET technology, or there's an Oracle database or a line, any other database. It's all data which is getting exposed and exchanged. So that really has broken down all the barriers,
Right.
from a technology perspective.
Right.
So that's my take on that.
Sure. Thank you very much, Kandar. That's really. Anyone, Shalu, Amol, any thoughts on various tools or your experience? Anyone who wants to set up a NBFC, fintech? Any thoughts from either of you?
Actually, I'll agree with what Kandra just mentioned. So DevOps have changed
Right.
the technology game, and it's not only the small players. The way now you have a bouquet and a range of open source technology solutions
Right.
available, right?
Right.
People are building phenomenal solution. It's not only the small player. Even the big, largest of the banks are looking for niche pockets of those, white spaces where they can use these kind of solutions. That's why a lot of fintech company who have just picked up very small challenging area who somebody never
Right.
even thought about that it
Right.
could be disrupted.
Right.
For example, a flow for in corporate banking for issuance of a letter of credit.
Right.
Okay, corporate banking, which is a highly manual, work intensive kind of area, people have been able to disrupt that using these open source DevOps based.
Right.
And interestingly, the transformation wave is going on in country in NBFCs. Okay, whether it is housing finance, it is vehicle finance, used vehicle finance, equipment finance, equipment leasing.
Right. Right.
Some of the, and everybody has realized that fact that, and a lot of emphasis. So if you are setting up a business, there are few core components. Definitely everything has to revolve over the customer. So you have to have a very, very strong and scalable customer layer, which is called your digital layer. There are multiple platforms available for it. A lot of the people are building it themselves. Then you have a lot of fintech and external ecosystem plugins,
Right.
which make your job a lot easier. Everything is almost available in some shape or form.
Right.
And you need to have definitely a very robust and agile core
Right.
backbone, because this is eventually everything is going to build on top of that.
Right.
Difference in banks and NBFCs is that you don't need such a comprehensive core solutions like a bank need.
Right.
So still there are very few replacement for core banking solutions. So
Right.
that backbone is going to be there. In fact, you will be surprised to see some of the largest of the banks of the world and MNCs, the giants, they are still running on their in-house built solutions.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and multi-country operations,
Absolutely.
thousands of application. That's gonna be there. It's no CIO wants to take that risk of moving from a stable solution to something new. It will happen once in a while. But on the NBFC side,
Right.
right from the customer experience layer, your digital layer, your core solutions, there is a disruption wave going on, and these are the critical and necessary components. Everything is like just falls in place, and now everything doesn't have to be built or procured. You have service based models, you have people who are ready to provide that, who are better at it
Right.
than you, right?
Right.
So all those plugins, all you have to do is build an API based architecture which lets you integrate with this external
Right.
ecosystem, have
Absolutely.
a decent customer layer.
Right.
You have multiple options, open source platforms, proprietary platforms, whatever. Compute and data storage, not a challenge anymore. You
Right.
have pretty good cloud providers. All the recent solutions are cloud optimized.
Right.
So I think this is, so all the pieces are available. It's up to you. How do you plan? And also, what are your priorities?
Right.
How much capacity to spend do you have in a particular area, and where do you want to prioritize your expenses or investments? So
Right.
it's majorly based on that. Yeah.
Excellent, excellent. So I just couple of more points, and then we can look at the questions that are coming up. We are nearing 6 o'clock as well. So we briefly touched upon customer lifecycle management. Right from acquiring the customer, retention, growth, and upselling everywhere. So Shalu, your thoughts on growth and retention? Obviously, if I am a customer, I'm being obviously lured by a lot of options. As a customer, as a consumer, I've got many options. And what are some of the strategies, or what are some of the execution plans that you see working really well, and for our participants and viewers who are here, for them to learn?
Yeah, sure. So if you talk about growth and retention, in my mind, retention is one of the very important aspect for any business house or even a bank, for simple reason. Acquiring a new customer all fresh is at a higher cost as compared to if we end up retaining or
Right.
do an upsell and cross sell.
Absolutely.
Hence, it is very, very important we need to invest in that. And obviously, in today's time, there are very few differentiator. What one is doing, second can copy very fast.
Right.
So service, bringing a USP, bringing a kind of rate and fee kind of thing is very easy copy. Anybody can copy, right? Or any kind of a particular channel can be easily copied. But how do you end up giving a good service and retention to a customer is very, very paramount. I would say that really helps to bring the growth in a way as well, because obviously if you end up selling or upselling or cross selling, what we end up telling,
Right.
that will really make a better business model for any organization.
Right.
Most of the organization are focused on that, and successful business models are actually hinging around that. How many customers you are able to cross sell,
Right.
give a bundle product, bring another revenue model from there, and ultimately you are paying lower cost of acquisition.
Right.
So retention is as I said, is very important, and this leads to definitely a growth
Right.
from an overall customer perspective, and then connecting it to the brand. Obviously, then the customer is loyal to you. It will come back. The customer will come back to you, and the loyalty plays a big role in branding as well.
Right.
So I think all growth, retention, brand is interconnected to this extent.
Nice, nice, very nice. Thank you very much, Shalu. So there's a question here on the chat room as I see. How do you look at risk involved in digital lending for unsecured products, especially unsecured products, to improve delinquency and avoid fraudulent lending? So one is talking about, how do you reduce NPAs? Obviously, we spoke about data, a lot of consumer data, customer data. Anyone of you, if you can share your thoughts on this question.
See, sorry, I'll take it. So obviously the risk to some extent is there in all the businesses, but how do you end up mitigating the risk is also very important. I think in my mind, digital is nowhere higher at a risk level. In fact, it will be in a better league, I would say, from a risk perspective, because you are actually basing with the customer at multiple point in case. Like an Aadhaar, an e-sign, bringing income documents right from the source, like account aggregator we spoke about, bringing algorithms to understand what is the customer paying capacity from a credit perspective. All of these are machine led.
Right.
Whereas when it is not digital, then there is a manual intervention, there is a subjectivity element which is involved in.
Right.
If your machine is trained well on the rules and the algorithms, I don't think so the risk increases or decreases. You can only better it by training the machine.
Right.
And as far as the customer touch point is concerned, there are multiple ways you can end up touching base with the customer. He is coming to your digital platforms, your website, your mobile. You are doing authentication from various mediums and taking all the right steps. So from that aspect, it is no different. And in fact, a lot of data speaks in many places.
Right.
The business or the portfolio source from these particular platforms is performing much better as compared to the other normal portfolios.
Right.
Now, it also depends upon how your policies are framed. That's
Right.
another.
Absolutely, absolutely. Kandarp, I saw you. I think you are mostly about to say risk involved in digital lending, your space, especially from a tech side.
No, I think Shalu summarized it pretty
Right.
well. And the only point, I mean, what I
Right.
also wanted to just say in the same breath is that, these are not, uninformed or random decisions that we are taking, be it digital or any other channel. So it's all well calculated risk which is taken, and there's a lot of science which goes behind it.
Right.
So it's even though it may appear that you're just giving an instant approval,
Yes.
without thinking and without blinking an eyelid, but then there's always a lot of sophistication which is now
Absolutely.
deployed in taking these decisions.
Absolutely, absolutely. Amol, your thoughts on the risk involved in
Yes, I think similar to the views.
right.
Only thing is, I think we are organizations are more ready than ever to handle the risk assessment
Yes.
part,
Yes.
because now you have the capability to process more data.
Right.
One is that you have more data, which was
Right.
not there, and
Right.
you have the capability to process it, build
Process.
those models around it, and see, very closely related things. What is going to differentiate you in a product like a loan? What differentiates you? One thing that's gonna the customer goes through three major life stages. You acquire, you serve, you grow that customer.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Now, how fast can you respond to that customer? And you can how fast you can respond
Yes.
with something that resonates with his need, the closest to his need.
Absolutely.
Now, you are doing it. So what happens if you see, and it's not limited to NBFCs only. If you look at some recent frauds, machines have done their work. The problems have happened when people have overwritten decisions made
Right.
by machines.
Right.
When the manual intervention happened, when, as Shalu mentioned. So
Right.
I think now you have a capability. AI, machine learning. These are not new concept. They were taught to people in 80s as neural networks and all that.
Right.
Only thing which we didn't have the data.
Right.
Because more data you have, more credible your outcome is going to be. And we
Right.
didn't have the computation capability. Now
Right.
that is available in abundance. You have cloud, providers. You can buy, you can rent whatever capacity you need.
Right.
So you have parameters. You can build a more detailed profile of a customer.
Yes.
It's not only the data about his financial numbers or his residential or personal information. You have social media. You have credit bureaus. Whatever, the digital footprint of the customer.
Right.
Google knows more about me and you than your family knows.
Absolutely.
Families know. But this
Absolutely.
data is scattered all
Right.
across the digital world. So
Right.
I think it puts you in a better place to do the risk assessment.
Right.
Now it's going to be a conscious call.
Right.
If I want to ignore some part of it,
Right.
but it's not that I don't have that visibility. I can see the risk.
Right.
Now the decision is how much of it I'm gonna, I'm willing to absorb.
Right.
Or take.
Right. Right. Great. Thank you very much. We're almost 5 minutes overshoot of time. Just a minute to all three of you. Your last closing comments for the day.
Yeah, sure. So I'll go first. So I'll just like to sum up. Obviously, we spoke about technology, we spoke about digital, we spoke
Right.
about data.
Right.
So what we are seeing, these are the current trend, and this definitely is changing the behavior, the way we all are moving in the lending industry, and obviously customers are changing the behavior for us as well. How do
Yes.
they want us to be? They want us to be where they are. So our endeavor as institutions are also to be there, and we are trying the best, or the lending industry is trying to be best there. I'm sure some people are ahead, some are behind, but all of them are working towards that particular race.
Right.
So I'm sure this is going to change or continue to change the way we look at lending and digital lending as a whole.
Right.
Right.
Right. Kandar,
Yeah. So I think my take from this session is that the frontiers or the challenges that were kind of looking ominous maybe a year or two earlier are now something which is a routine and a BAU thing for everyone. We seem to have done a remarkably good job of securing our businesses and seeing growth and then fueling that growth. But what I also I think take away from this session is that the new frontiers which for
Yes.
maybe Shalu and me will have to crack is go to the larger segment which is out there. People who are untested, maybe taking Amol's
Yes.
example,
Yes. Yes.
maybe 30 or 40 Kenyas are already there in India,
Right.
which are just waiting for us to reach them.
Right.
And roll out all these new technologies that we have tested here in these smaller segments and smaller markets, and then go and do a completely different and amazing job out there in the next 3 or 5 years perhaps.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Kandar. Amol, your closing comments for the day today?
Thanks to the panelists and the great discussion. I'll just, a small thing I want to say, no matter how much cliche it might sound, but one thing that's gonna dominate this discourse or any discourse is going to be data, right?
Yes.
So businesses have to be, data hungry businesses, and because eventually, what is a customer? It's a huge set of data.
Right.
So
Right.
to whatever extent you can slice and dice it and figure out,
Right.
and that's applicable to market as well.
Right.
That's
Right.
also a set of data. So these untouched segment, untapped opportunities. So how well we are able to identify those and serve those, I think that's going to decide the future course of this segment and this sector actually. So
Absolutely,
that's it.
absolutely. No, great. Thank you very much, Anmol. Thank you, Kandar. Thank you, Shalu. So, for me, yes, three things really like the data and technology, both data and technology enabling a great customer experience. I think that will really go a long way in lending and in digital transformation. I think that's my learning and my experience has been today. So Shivani, yes, we see you back. We are 8 minutes past 6.
Yeah, no, so I just wanted to convey what the audience has been saying, and they're saying it's a fabulous panel just based on the number of questions that came on. I know it was a super engaging session. So just
Right.
came on to say thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. I know it's Friday evening, so you're raring to go. But thank you so much, Kandar, Shalu, Amol, for this fabulous discussion, and of course, Sudipta for hosting it.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
It was
Thank you,
pleasure
everyone.
interacting with everyone here.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Same
Bye.
here. Bye.
Bye.